Okay, let's start then. All right, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome. And I'm very excited to have you here as we celebrate the 50th anniversary of Journal of Hospitality and Tourism Research, which is ICHRIE's flagship journal. Since its founding in 1976, JHTR has been a heart of our field, driving ideas, elevating scholarship, and shaping the conversations that move hospitality and tourism forward. Today's inaugural anniversary webinar is not just a celebration of where we have been, but an exciting moment of where we are headed next. So my name is Minwoo Lee. I'm a director of research at ICHRIE. On behalf of International Korean Journal of Hospitality and Tourism Research, it's truly an honor to welcome you and to help kick off this milestone moment for our global research community. We all know the hospitality and tourism industries are transforming faster than ever, powered by shifting consumer expectations, new workforce realities, digital disruption, and increasingly competitive landscape. And that's why today's conversation is so important. We are bringing together two remarkable voices, a former JTR editor and leading scholar, and a senior industry leader who is shaping strategy and operations in real time. To celebrate the JHTR's 50th anniversary, we have been working so hard since last year with wonderful committee members, including co-chairs Dr. Udi Kim and Dr. Amit Sharma, and the committee members Dr. Lulu, Dr. Cindy Ho, Dr. Chung-bum Che, Dr. Jenna Lee, and Dr. Jade Shi, and of course, ICHRIE's executive board and President Perry Hobson, Vice President Carl Winston, and ICHRIE office Amber McGuire, Mary Richard, and Dollar Hancock. So thank you all again for being here, and we are excited, we are celebrating, we are ready to explore the next era of hospitality and tourism research together. So from now on, it's my great pleasure and to honor to introduce our two outstanding panelists who will help guide today's conversation. First, Dr. Mattila, a former editor of JHTR and one of the most influential scholars in hospitality and service research. Dr. Mattila is a Marriott Professor of Lodging Management at the School of Hospitality Management at the Pennsylvania State University. She holds a PhD in Service Marketing from Cornell University. Her research focused on service encounters with a particular interest in healthy eating, service recovery, artificial intelligence, social media, and cross-cultural research. Her work has appeared in the Journal of Academy of Marketing Science, Journal of Retailing, Journal of Service Research, Journal of Consumer Psychology, Psychology and Marketing, Journal of Service Marketing, Journal of Service Management, Cornell Hospitality Quarterly, Journal of Travel Research, International Journal of Hospitality Management, Tourism Management, Annals of Tourism Research, and of course, Journal of Hospitality and Tourism Research, among others. Dr. Mattila served as a chief editor for JHTR for 5 years and currently serves as an associate editor of Annals of Tourism Research and Journal of Sustainable Tourism. She is a recipient of several lifetime research awards, including the Pauline Chomet Russell Distinguished Research Career Award from the College of Health and Human Development at the Pennsylvania State University, John William Jones Lifetime Research Award from ICHRIE, University of Delaware's Olson Lifetime Award, and Founders Award from the annual Graduate Student Conference in Hospitality and Tourism. Her current H index is 104 over 41,000 citations. So now I'm excited to introduce Dr. Jim Butler, the Chief Executive Officer of Club Benchmarking, which is the leading club analytics and business intelligence company in the world. So Club Benchmarking specializes in country club, golf club, yacht club, and dining and city clubs, and maintains the largest financial database of clubs globally. Their work includes captive reserve studies, captive performance modeling, compensation and benefit analysis, and member surveys, all built on aggregated non-identifiable financial data that has transformed how clubs understand and manage their operations. Dr. Butler also teaches a capital planning course for the CMAA certification program, bringing his expertise directly to the next generation of club leaders. Before leading club benchmarking, he held multiple executive roles at Grey Oaks Country Club in Naples including CEO, CFO, and president. His professional background is uniquely comprehensive. He's a certified club manager with the Club Managers Association of America, a former golf course superintendent member, and a PGA professional who earned the South Florida Golf Professional of the Year award. His academic journey is just as impressive, with degrees in chemistry, golf course maintenance operation, an MBA in real estate development and finance, and finally a doctorate degree in hospitality. And before we dive into the conversation, I also like to introduce someone who has played a key role in bringing this webinar to us today, Dr. Lulu, the chair of our webinar organizing committee. And Dr. Lu has been instrumental in shaping today's program and ensuring that this 50th anniversary celebration reflects both the legacy and the future of JHTR. So we are grateful for her leadership and dedication in making this event possible. Dr. Lu will share more details about this event with you.
Thank you, Minwoo. Thank you, Dr. Lee. That's a wonderful introduction. So it has been a wonderful working with everybody. So one more time, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where in the world you are. Welcome. It's a pleasure to have you join us for this special occasion as we launch the inaugural webinar celebrating the 50th anniversary of the Journal of Hospitality Tourism Research. This milestone is both a reflection of 5 decades of scholarly excellence and a moment to look ahead and envision the future of our field. We gather at this time when hospitality and tourism are experiencing rapid transformation. I hear you, Dr. Lee, I agree. This transformation is driven by evolving consumer expectations, workforce shifts, and digital innovation, as well as disruption. We have a lot of excitement, but also confusion here, right? So these changes raise important questions about how our research can remain relevant, rigorous, and impactful in shaping both scholarship and practice. Today's session is designed to spark those conversations, bring together academic and industry-leading figures' perspective to reflect on where we have been and where we're going next. So with that, it is my great pleasure to introduce our lead moderator, Dr. Woody Kim. Dr. Kim is the Dedman Professor of Hospitality Management and Director of the International Center for Hospitality Research and Development at Florida State University. He has published over 200 articles and received more than 33,000 citations, reflecting his significant scholarly impact. He is the recipient of numerous prestigious honors, including the Johnson Wiley & Sons Lifetime Research Achievement Award and the Fulbright U.S. Scholar Award, and the Michael D. Olson Research Award. Dr. Kim currently serves as the editor of JHTR, and we're truly fortunate to have his leadership guiding today's conversation. Dr. Kim, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Lou. So we do have 5 different dialogues. So let's start with the first dialogue. So it's opening reflection. So I will ask Anna first the question. What do you see as the most important ways hospitality and tourism research has matured, and what role has JHTR played in elevating the field?
Okay, first of all, I want to thank you, Woody, for taking over the editorship of the journal. It is a huge job, and you'll be doing an excellent job doing it. So thank you for that. Okay, so in the early years, back in the 70s and 80s, research was really documenting what happens in hospitality context. So it was very, very descriptive, using descriptive statistics, trying to understand what is going on. Today, the best research explains why things happen, when things change, and for whom. So we are at the stage where we have now reached the methodological rigor. We move from t-test to sophisticated modeling, including large language modeling, multi-level modeling, process modeling. So we've really gone a long way in terms of methodology. And what JHTR's role has been, it has really elevated theory-driven hospitality research. We are in an applied field that will never change. We are an applied hospitality field. However, now we use theories to explain what's going on. And what JHTR has done remarkably well is that it has encouraged rigor without losing industry grounding. So in sum, what I think that has happened, what JHTR has done, it has helped move our field from observation to explanation. And that is a great achievement.
Okay, great. Thank you. One question to Jim. From an industry perspective, what kinds of insights or evidence truly influence decision making? Where do you think academic research has the most opportunity to be more impactful?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Kim. And thanks everybody for inviting me onto this panel. Those are quite the resumes that we heard leading into this. From, my perspective, I have the benefit of sitting between the academics and the real life. Club benchmarking works with over 1,200 private clubs across the country. I was in a board meeting yesterday over in Boca Raton, Florida, and that was the third one that I was in this week. So I get to see what happens in boardrooms across the country, and what I see is that there's what moves the industry and what moves the boardroom is not necessarily what moves the journal. In terms of the boardroom and what we're trying to do in club benchmarking is we're trying to elevate fact over opinion. And many times in the boardroom, everybody has an opinion. And generally speaking, if there's no data that is around, the person with the loudest voice in the boardroom is the one that gets to drive that forward. When we talk in business, we talk in terms of capital reserve ratios, net worth, workforce cost comparisons. It's got to be against the peer clubs that they're working against or the peer clubs in the industry, and they're very specific data points in terms of what we're talking about. On the industry, it's very important that we're able to put context into that, and these boards only meet 12 times a year. So in terms of the decision making has to happen all in a relatively quickly period of time. In academic research, which I'm blessed to be involved in through my Iowa State connection and Dr. Lee's connection, some of the research might take as long as 2 years. And if it takes that long, it's a disconnect from industry because in the private club space, the board changes every year. So by the time a project starts and a project leaves, the board has already moved on and changed. So that I think is an opportunity that what we have to do is make sure that we bridge that, we understand each other's research goals, and then we're able to meld those together as we look forward.
Great. Thank you. Let's move to the subject dialogue two regarding the research practice connection. So there will be two small questions, and then I'm going to ask you two small questions at the same time. The first one, where do you think the research practice gap is still most visible in hospitality and tourism? The second one, what is one example of a study approach or partnership you believe has done this so well? Jim?
Beautiful. Yeah, in our place, I think there's a couple things. I think the first thing is the language. So when we talk about the language in business, the language, and I'll say specifically, business language is finance language. So we talk about EBITDA, or we talk about net worth per member, or we talk about capital reserve. When we flip over the academic side, we talk in terms of constructs and variables. And that type of language is a disconnect between what the academic research is and what the practical part of that. If I go into a board meeting and start to talk about latent variables, the eyeballs roll to the top because they're not sure what that even means. Secondly, in terms of industry doesn't have people that just do research where they're running on very thin margins. So there's tremendous opportunities to do that. I'll point to Dr. Lee, who's my mentor. She started the Club Research Lab at Iowa State. We're so excited to be able to do that. It's a great partnership that we have, and she invites me in to much of her research from a practical standpoint, and it's really a relationship that I really treasure. We also work with the CMAA, which has a lot of data and are always interested. There's a research committee which is involved with many of the universities that you all belong to, between, I see, Michigan State and Florida State and Penn State being the primary ones there, but there's many other ones also involved in that. So I think that that is those are the opportunities, is to really partner with those associations, or really dive in and get those relationships stronger.
Okay, great. Thank you. Anna?
I fully agree with Jim. It's very important to have those curiosity-driven partnerships with industry. And that's something that, all our hospitality programs are really shooting for, and that's important. But I also think where the gap exists is because we as academics, we tend to write to each other. The audience is us amongst ourselves. So we use a lot of really fancy terms that don't really mean anything to other people. So I think that jargon-laden language is a disadvantage when you're trying to explain our research to the industry. So what we should do is to try to make our work more reader-friendly, so to speak. So what we should probably do is come up with executive summaries that are easy to understand. You get the message. We could get a little creative, do videos, explain the piece through videos, social media posts, use LinkedIn, whatever is available that actually practitioners are looking at. Because I think that's a big problem. Because at the end of the day, practitioners don't just need answers, they also need explanations. Why are things happening?
Thank you, Anna. I totally agree. We are using too much, academic jargons in our journals. So, all right, let's move to another subject about education, right? How we can prepare the next generation of talents. So, to close the research practice gap over the next decade, what capabilities should you be training the next generation of hospitality scholars to develop? And what changes should we make in doctoral education? I'm going to ask one question to Anna first. What does a high impact scholarship look like for the next generation beyond publication counts?
So it's really, in my opinion, it's really raising the level of thinking in the field rather than counting citations.
Mhm.
And also another thing that I personally believe in is that trying to elevate our field so that mainstream disciplines would look at us as something important is also important for us to publish in mainstream journals and be cited by mainstream journals, because that will elevate the whole entire field. So high impact scholarship is, so it's not just citations, it's also challenging assumptions, because that's how you create curiosity. Offering clarity on mechanisms and boundary conditions, so really understand what's going on. And in my opinion, high impact scholarship really enables cumulative science, so we learn from each other. And it also aligns naturally with open science, and that's something I'm going to talk about later on. So those are my key points.
Okay, great. Thanks for your insight. Jim, what would you make practitioners more willing to partner with the doctoral students and the scholars?
Yeah, I think there's plenty of opportunities there, especially with the doctoral students that I get to work with, and the scholars I get to work with. In any relationship, I think it's you have to participate in that relationship. So I think the relationships need to be longer term, as opposed to just transactional relationships, as far as being involved in each other's business on an ongoing basis. I think if we can make those relationships and develop those relationships between the people in the industry and the people in academics, so that people would view each other as resources that can be used on a continuous basis, as opposed to a one-off basis. Much of the research that we get asked to participate in is from somebody that has an idea that they want to explore, and that's fantastic. But many times that has nothing to do with what we're doing within our particular business. And it might have been something that we did 2 or 3 years ago that we've already moved through. So our interest in participating in that is not much. So I think there's got to be a lot more collaboration on what the relevant topics are, And in order for that to happen, we have to be involved with each other on a more regular basis so that when we go into design and we go into research design and we go into what we're trying to solve, that is more of a collaborative project as opposed to one side or the other asking on a particular need. I think we would find that there would be many more opportunities if we did that collaboratively and participated more actively in the relationship with each other.
Great. Thank you. Let's change subject again. Let's talk about significant changes in hospitality and tourism. So what do you see as the most significant forces reshaping hospitality over the next 5 to 10 years? And which one are the most under-researched or misunderstood? Anna?
Obviously, AI. I mean, we can't talk about anything in today's world without thinking about AI. So that is shaping the industry, shaping our world as consumers, as people living in this world. So AI is certainly something. The automation is there, and we have to understand that. Also, there's a huge shift in the workforce change that needs to be studied and studied deeply, not just at the surface level. So also, obviously, everybody's, I'm just talking about something we all know, climate and sustainability is something that we can't ignore. So again, we need to go deeper and understand sustainability from a different level. And there also is a lot of blurring boundaries. If you look at wellness tourism, remote work, postpartum care resorts, there's really is an intersection between hospitality and the healthcare industry. I think that's important. That's an opportunity for us to broaden our horizons. So really, technology is changing fast. So the problem for us, especially as researchers, is how to keep up with it.
Okay, great. Thank you. Jim, what do you see as the most significant forces reshaping hospitality tourism over the next 5 to 10 years? And where would you most likely to see insight from academic research?
Yeah, we've seen a fundamental shift in the last 5 to 10 years. I think we've gone through the greatest macroeconomic increase in terms of the history of the United States and in many places across the world. I mean, I would take a show of hands of anybody that thinks with the war that happened that the Dow would reach all-time highs in the last couple of days, if anybody thought that that would ever happen. When I did my dissertation in 2016, I wrote in that the stock market was 16,000. Today it's 50,000, and that wasn't that long ago. So the one thing is the amount of capital and the asset and the investment that's happening in the industry is unbelievable because of the amount of money that is in the market. It's a multi-billion dollar. It's not unusual that we're investing hundreds of millions of dollars into this capital, and there's very little academic research on what the return on that investment is. We would love to see much more research on that. Secondly, is I don't think you can talk about hospitality without talking about the workforce and the lack of, it's not that we're short of workers, we're short of people that want to work in hospitality. And the shift out of that, I have two kids that grew up in hospitality, and when I asked them if they wanted to work in hospitality, they said, "Dad, why would I want to work weekends and holidays like you did?" So we have a lot of work to do to really tell everybody about the advantages of working in hospitality. Third, when you reflect that on the consumer, and we talk about this expansion in the consumer basis between the 35-year-olds and the 90-year-olds, you have this generational expansion that is really interesting in terms of that. In the private club space, but also in the resort space, we're trying to satisfy both sides of that equation, which makes it very difficult. But as we know, those generations want different things. As Anna said, the AI is changing the world. And then I think the fifth area is governance. When you talk about governance, the importance of governance in our space is volunteer, but even in the corporate space, in terms of what the needle movers are, and what really moves, whether you're in the for-profit world or the not-for-profit world, the importance of those boards and the decisions. There's very little research in the hospitality space about the influence of governance on the outcomes, and I think that's a big opportunity to between academia and the industry to bridge some gaps.
Thank you for your insight. Let's talk about JHTR's next chapter. So if you could each recommend up to 3 priority areas JHTR should lead in the next decade, what would they be and why? Anna?
Okay, I'm putting my editorial hat on. I think one of the big things we need to do is fix the review process. How long can we sustain this double-blind process? Because there are just too many demands on each of us. How many review requests you get a week? It's just impossible to manage in today's world, right? So there are too many papers, too many demands on every one of us. There's too much pressure on people to publish, and that creates a problem, right? So is this double-blind process, is it really something that we can sustain in the future? I'm not so sure. Another big issue in terms of the editors, from the editor's perspective, is how do we deal with AI? It's a cat and mouse game, right? Can you catch up? How can you catch up? AI gets more sophisticated. There's no way we can detect that anymore. So what is the role of AI first of all, when you're doing your research? Is it okay to ask AI questions and have AI dictate what you're writing? I'm not sure that's the right thing to do, but again, today's world is AI. So we as an academia, we have to figure out what is acceptable and what is not. So that's the review process is something that, we really need to think it through. The second one is open science. I really would see JHTR being a leader in the open science because transparency is needed. Because there was a lot of doubt among people about science today. So unless it's transparent, we're not going to gain the public trust. That replicability is a huge issue. Can we replicate what we had in one study again in another setting or another time? So that's a huge issue because that transparency and open science is something that really will enhance the credibility of our field. So open science is the second one. And then the third one that's really, really important is a methodological pluralism. So that we have different methodologies. We don't favor one over the others. We can have high quality qualitative work, we can have experiments, we have big data, mixed methods, etc., etc. The list just goes on. But the important thing is that the tool choice should be driven by the research question, not fashion. So I think that JHTR strength has always been intellectual leadership, not so much trying to chase trends. And I hope that will remain the case.
Thank you, Anna. I totally agree with you. AI is a major challenges for, not only for JHTR, for our other journals as well. So, Sage, we had a kind of orientation or brainstorming session about AI issues. So all those about 60 editors, all the different disciplines get together, discuss about that issue. So unfortunately, Sage still does not recommend any specific software to detect the AIs. So we don't have any, tools to solve that issue. So at this point, the only way we could address this issue, JHTR are now requiring the authors to disclose, the specific usages of AI just to check the grammar, use that AI to create some ideas, create a table. So we are now requiring the authors to disclose AI usages. And when you have some meeting with associate editors or reviewers, once in a while I get the comments from them. They feel like they are quite sure authors use AIs. So great example, they can find some references, but it doesn't exist. Some of those fake references you can clearly see because AI probably authors use that. So some of those obvious situations we can detect. Other than that, so it's very difficult for us to see. And I strongly agree with you. We are seeing more paper submissions these days. So probably that's somewhat related to AI usages for the users as well. So it's no doubt about it. So, Anna, and when I graduated from Purdue long time ago, we don't have that many publications, and we have to go to the library to the literature review. It takes a month, right? So, I mean, you have to borrow the books, takes a couple of weeks, and you have to submit the paper to the editors. Mail takes about a couple of weeks to get the editors to review the paper. Coming back a couple of weeks. So, but now these days data collection very, very short. Some people using online, for Olympics, MTurk takes a couple of days, writing a couple of days. So I mean everything is quick, right? So that's a major challenges. So we have to figure that out, how we can be sustainable. I totally agree.
And Dr. Kim, do you see that as what's the opportunity side of that? How do you see that as an opportunity to move the research ahead? I'm very interested because within our company, and we're a research company at the basis, it's transformed our company, and we have coders in our company, and from a research standpoint, the productivity has increased, tenfold in what one person can do from a academic and a student standpoint. How do you all the academics and how are we going to turn that into an opportunity?
I mean, you can see compared to like 3 decades ago, we can see a lot of people are very prolific. A lot of our field scholars are publishing tons of papers compared to 15, 20 years ago. So I'm sure they are fully taking advantage of those, AIs and also some other benefits. Like internet, everything you can do literature review quickly. Also, I can clearly see a lot more research collaborations, among scholars. But before we were like when you are graduating, very few collaborations. When a lot of people complete the study by themselves or maybe just another colleagues. But these days, I can see more than 5, 10 people working together, so they could produce a lot more with a lot more authors. So that's one of the patterns I can see.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Let's move to the public. So I think that's all we have. And then if you have any questions to us, so why don't you leave your questions, then we can answer your questions. Okay. The first question I can see, what advice would you offer to early career scholars who may not yet have deep industry insight, but aspire to bridge the academic industry gap in their research? Jim first.
Yeah, I think you got to go and make the connections and network with people to do that. There's many conferences. Conferences are great places to do that. I just recently got back from Anaheim, which was the National Club Managers Associations, which I'm sure some people on the call have gone there. Generally speaking, 50 to 60% of the managers are going to go there, and it's a great way to shake hands, make introductions around in order to do that. Two, I think a lot of the consulting folks making those connections with the consulting folks that are industry specific, they are always looking for specific data and solutions. And in order to do that, you've got to be able to meet them in order to do that. And then third, I think a lot of the social activities that you're able to attend also is a great way to network with people. It's my experience that a lot of times the researchers are not necessarily social folks, but let's get out of that and let's get out there and shake some hands in order to do that, because I can't tell you how many times I've get introduced to somebody and it leads to a collaboration on whether it's a sporting event or a family event or a school event to be able to do that. And I think at the end of the day, that's what it's about, right? It's about how we relate to each other, how we network with each other, and the opportunities that we create for each other.
Yeah, great advice. Anna, any advice?
Yeah, I fully agree with what Jim said. And I would just add that it's important for us as academics to be able to talk about our research in a language that makes sense to the practitioner. So I think that's important. And, like also another thing that to build your industry connections, you're gonna in those industry advisory boards that we have in our institutions. Those are also a great opportunity to reach out.
Yeah, totally agree. So I agree with Anna. When I conducted some major research project, I like to collect really high quality data, like a corporate data. The easiest source was our most successful alums in working in the executives for the major companies. So that was the best source for me as well in my experience. All right, let's talk about the second question here. Are there any pressing issues in hospitality and tourism that urgently call for greater scholarly attention? Anna?
So I think that, looking at today's world, the geopolitical instability is something that we should pay attention to. The
Mhm.
over tourism is another one. A lot of countries are suffering from over tourism. So those are two examples, but I think that really require interdisciplinary or multi-level approaches because they are things that we have to fundamentally understand what's going on. I mean, obviously, beyond what we already talked about, AI and the workforce transformation, et cetera, et cetera. But I think those are additional topics that are very important that we should pay attention to.
Yeah, I totally agree. So that's why JHTR recently launched a special issue. The title was The Impact of Political Environment on Hospitality and Tourism. We have received more than 100 submissions. So it was one of the highest submission ever. So we expect to, having a lot of good papers out. So,
That's exciting.
yeah. And Jim?
Yeah, two things jump to my mind right away. One is luxury experience. We talk a lot about the member experience or luxury experience in the hotel business, but there's very little research on what that experience actually is and what constitutes creating that experience. We throw that word around within industry all the time of that experience, but it really has yet to be described that I can see, and especially in the club space, I can promise you it hasn't been described. Everybody has a different opinion on what that is, and there's very little research to do that. And yet, we know that that's one of the fundamental issues in every business in order to try and satisfy the customer. The second thing that we're very excited about is this: what is value and how do people value it? And I think it goes in to maybe a longitudinal research on members, guests, and workforce experience also. There's very few longitudinal studies to see how that has changed in
Mhm.
time. And as we go through the generational on both workforce, guests, consumers, understanding that, I think, in a longer term view would be very beneficial and very interesting, especially with people that are involved with organizations. And I think with JHTR being around for 50 years, you've demonstrated that those are things that you can do that very few other people could possibly do because of the time element on that. And wouldn't those be interesting studies to see how the interaction between customers over time changes?
Mhm. Yeah, Jim, I totally agree with you. So, you have seen a lot of papers using cross-sectional data just one single time period. I believe you'll be able to see a lot more papers coming using time series data over time. So, as you mentioned, it's critical in the future, I think. Oh, another interesting question from the floor. Our industry is rapidly evolving. How should researchers approach phenomena where industry practices are changing faster than academic publication cycles? Jim?
Yeah, I think, we referenced that before that, that doing 2 years on a research study in today's world that changes every 30 days is we're going to really have to look at that. But I think there's two elements to that. I think the one element is being able to anticipate what that is. But the second part of that is we're going to have to take real time data and have access to real time data so that we can have real time solutions
Mhm.
in terms of that. One of the things in research that is so difficult is getting that real time data but many people will let the researchers, especially with as the AI comes into the world, the decision making is going to change so much, and we've got to make sure that the researchers have the ability for the same access to that data as opposed to data that is 1 or 2 years old. How are you going to do that? There's only one way you're going to be able to do that, and that is to partner with the practitioners where they see that the academic people can be part of the team and part of the solution in the weekly or the monthly or the quarterly meetings that all these companies have. So we're looking for historical data, but the historical data now has gone from last year's data to last month's data, and it's going to go to last week's data or last night's data.
Great. Anna?
I agree. The data data is everywhere. It's just like how do we use it? How do we interpret data? And that's important.
Another good question here. What excites you most about the future of a hospitality tourism scholarship, Anna?
So I'm interested in the integrating different fields like psychology, that's my own background, technology, sustainability, and ethics. How do we integrate those fields to really address complex societal challenges that we face in the industry? So I'm really looking at that more interdisciplinary work.
Okay,
However,
great.
what interdisciplinary work means, it depends on the institution, how you define it. So, it's a fancy word that we as academics want to use, but what it really means is a different thing.
Okay, great. Jim?
I think, it's an exciting time. I think I work with a lot of students both around the country, specifically Florida, Gulf Coast University in Fort Myers or Iowa State in Ames, and I'm always amazed at the talent level of the younger people and what they can bring to organizations, especially with the technology, the AI. And I think one of the most exciting things we can do is bridge the gap between what the younger people are bringing to the table so that the older people aren't dismissive of that, but embrace that. And that's very difficult when you have somebody who's been in the industry for 30 years and may not be very technologically savvy in terms of that. But the need in the industry, in the speed, so I think it's an unbelievable opportunity for hospitality to step up. The other thing is you can't replace hospitality with AI. So that reaction, you can replace elements of it, but at the end of the day, hospitality is that personal connection between each of us, and we've got to lean into that, and we've got to make sure that we have enough people that view this industry as something that they want to work in because of the relationship nature of it and not just because of the technology part of that as we go forward. And I think that that's a challenge for all industries, but I think hospitality in particular.
Okay, great. One question from floor. Dr. Butler mentioned collaboration with the industry to drive industry relevant research. How does a professor located in rural area do that? So Anna, actually your university is located in rural area. You may be able to answer these questions.
So again, that's where technology will help you. We all use technology to communicate with each other. Like I do a lot of research all over the world. I don't necessarily meet person, have in-person encounters with everybody, but the Zoom meetings, the emails, technology can help you a lot if you're in a remote area. So that shouldn't be that much of a barrier anymore, your physical location.
Okay, great answer for that. Another question, in an increasingly competitive research landscape, how can JHTR continue to stand out as a leading journal? Anna, you may be the best person to answer these questions.
Okay, so I think JHTR's role is not to just publish the best papers, but also to shape the research agenda for the whole hospitality and tourism scholarship. So we really need to be the leaders. So we curate work that addresses great challenges that we face while advancing the core theory. If you continue doing that, JHTR is well positioned to to be successful for the next 50 years.
Okay, thank you. Jim, any insight for the questions?
No, I think number one, I think, for any organization to be around for 50 years is an amazing thing. So congratulations to the leadership on that. And I think when we look forward, we always talk about controlling the narrative. And to Anna's point on, controlling the research, is there anything more critical than that? Because we all have limited time, and we got to make sure that we're making sure that we focus our attention on the right things. And I think one of the criticisms that the industry would say for us as people that do research is that a lot of times the research has nothing to do with what the business is. So in terms of what that is, that nothing could be more important than that to shape the future of research to help industry move forward on things that are relevant.
Okay, so I agree with Jim. I also enjoyed a lot attending sometimes industry focused conferences. So when I attend there, most of those people are industry folks, and then I can learn a lot more about industry trend, what's going on over there. So I think you can, as a scholar, get some good insight, what good research topics are actually happening in the world, not from our desk. So I think that's important for academics to have some exposure to with industries.
Right.
Great. So it's time to wrap up our inaugural webinar. So closing comments. So as we celebrate the 50th anniversary of the Journal of Hospitality and Tourism Research, this inaugural webinar marks the first of several celebration events, with more to follow at ICHRIE conference in Vegas this July. We are organizing a series of special events, including Editors Forum, reflecting the past, present, and future of JHTR, Meet the Editor sessions. Also, we are going to show the conference attendees a commemorative short video to be presented during the closing award dinner. So video will feature congratulatory messages from former editors, associate editors, editorial board members, along with the highlights of key JHTR statistics over the past decade. A roundtable discussion with the current editorial leadership team will be also held. So the audience will have any questions, about our journals, review process, all those things. We'll also recognize the JHTR Best Article of the Year Award and Commendable Research Paper Award recipients and JHTR Best Reviewers as well. We look forward to seeing you in Vegas. Thank you.
Much.